Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to Modernize or Die, CFML News Edition. We're up to episode 132. It's January 25th, 2022, and I've got the great Luis Majano joining me today. Welcome.
Hola. How are you, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good. A few more people showed up today. I wonder if that's because they wanted to hear the Luis talk about all the great boxiness. Well, first of all, I just want to thank our sponsors. So thank you, Luis, with Ortus Solutions, because obviously without Ortus Solutions, we wouldn't be able to do this podcast. So you guys, really great to be able to have us do this, and we're really, really thankful that we can do this for everybody here. What's a few ways they can say thanks back to Ortus Solutions?
Many ways, Gavin. But some of the easy ways is just please like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube. The more subscribers they get, the better. So please do so. It only takes a click away. You can star and fork all our repositories on GitHub. That helps us a lot as well and helps the language as well. So that's important. You can subscribe to our podcast, of course, and leave us some reviews. That would be fantastic, or things that we can improve on, right? Just the good stuff. And you can, of course, sign up for our SaaS accounts for CFCasts on ForgeBox. ForgeBox had a big makeover, so if you haven't checked it out in a bit, there's tons of business accounts, features for you, or if you work with multiple developers, tracking activity logs, all kinds of cool stuff. So get your hands on it as well. And if you become a patron, you get access to both, so which is pretty cool. And of course, our book, the 102 Coldbox HMBC Quick Tips and Tricks, is available, of course. I'm gonna be revising it actually pretty soon here. I'm also gonna be revising the CFML book, the modern CFML book as well. And should we tell them about the sneak peek of what you're doing, Gavin?
Yeah, well, we keep teasing that we're gonna have Brad's command box 103 quick tips and tricks, and so I decided let's just build a repo right now and get this thing started, because he's tweeting, and he's always tweeting all these little tips. I'm like, I can start writing his book for him by just copying and pasting his tweets basically into there. So we got that started today. So now we have a repo. So we're getting closer. Closer. If we get maybe 50, Brad will get inspired one day and do the rest. So we're going to give him a jump start here. So we're hoping that we'll get that book out sometime.
No, definitely. Now that we have a repo, we'll start all hacking at it. But, obviously supporting us, helps the podcast, helps the language. And, we have all kinds of tools and commercial updates that you guys can help us with.
Yep. And then, of course, we want to thank our Patreon supporters too, because we have 37 Patreons providing 96% of the funding for this podcast. So basically, almost the whole podcast is funded by Patreon, which means Ortus has more funds to be able to do other things like ForgeBox and CommandBox and ColdBox and all the other open source projects and everything else we were doing. So, that's really a big plus for us, and we really appreciate that. And so much. At the end of the show, we'll give you a rundown of those little perks. Luis mentioned a couple of them, but there are a few other perks for being a Patreon supporter, and we'll go through those names too. Okay, well, let's get into the news. So, Luis, what do we got coming up next week?
We got a great webinar coming up with Grant Copley. He's going to be talking about CB Wire. So if you guys have not heard about CB Wire, it is a port that we've done to CFML and Cold Fusion, just like Laravel Wire and what's it called? LaraWire? What's it?
Live Wire.
I always get them confused. With Alpine, one of my favorite new modern JavaScript libraries that I've been working with. So it's going to be really, really cool to actually show you how to actually build modern and reactive Cold Fusion applications without basically learning a new JavaScript framework. It works over the wire, just like the name expresses. So it's HR requests that help you bind basically your UI to your Cold Fusion backend. It is extremely fast, and you will be really blown away of everything that you can do now with CFML over the wire, instead of transitioning to a JavaScript framework such as Vue Js or Angular or React. It just really, really helps out. So I'm really excited for Grant to be showcasing all the cool stuff that we unveiled last year and Into the Box. So this webinar is really interesting for those of you guys that don't want to fully commit to a front end framework. You still want a little bit of sparkling of modern JavaScript, which we can with Alpine, which is only 4 kilobytes, and it gives you all kinds of reactivity. And of course with CBWire. So me personally, I'm very looking forward to it.
Yeah, I was really blown away by what he did with CBWire previously, and so I'm kind of curious how this Alpine JS is going to tie into it, especially all the stuff you're doing with Alpine JS with the content box updates and everything too. So we're getting some good use of that. So it's Vue Lite essentially. It looks pretty cool. Instead of a V4, you got an X4, and they got a lot of the cool stuff. So yeah, it looks really cool. Well, another bit of news. John Barrett posted on Twitter about starting up a new Meetup group. So I guess CF Hawaii is now a thing. So you can check out, they've got a Meetup group. And so they're in up there in Waiua. I'm terrible at pronouncing the names. Yeah. Anyway, they actually have some space at one of the Meetup. What do
You know
them?
in which island that is?
I'm trying to pronounce it. I don't know. Haiwa or something. I don't know where that is, but anyway, I'm thinking they're gonna do some virtual stuff too. And John's in the chat. Cool to see you, John. But yeah, so they've got a at CF Hawaii on Twitter now as well. There's a Meetup group, so you guys can check them out, and it's on the North Shore. That's what he says. So, okay. Anyway, yeah. So another little group. I know that user groups kind of Cold Fusion. There aren't too many around. There's a few around, so just wanted to let you know if you're in the area, check that out. But maybe they'll do some online stuff too, so we can get some, some more online meetups going as well. So pretty cool. And they're looking for topics. So if you got any topics, let them know, and they'll try and get it to work. So very cool. So what else we got coming up here, Luis?
We got some Adobe Workshops coming up. So led by Damien. Oh, that's a hard last name.
Bruin Donks, we think it is. We got
we
put a pronunciation thing in the show notes so we could try and pronounce it right.
That's a hard one. So hopefully we butcher his name, but Bruin Donk.
Yep. We've got a couple of dates coming up. So February 2nd, 2022, that's going to be from 9 to 4:30 Central European Time. There's also, I think it's Indian Standard Time, is 1:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. So it's the same workshops he's been giving lately, and they're pretty great. I've heard good things about them. And I think there's another one in March too, right, Luis?
So March 9th will be as well. Same schedule, 9 to 4:30 Central European Time. 1:30 to 9 Indian Standard Time.
Okay, and I'm going to post the link so you guys can register online if you'd like to do that. Heard it covers basically most of the same thing you'd get in the certification workshop, so pretty cool. Okay, well, our news is pretty light, but don't worry, we've got some more coming. We got CFCasts updates. So CFCasts, we just released a few new videos this week in our Ortus single video series. Looks like we're doing some AMI stuff, Luis.
Yes, these are, especially to start with the single video series. I think this is something that we wanted to do, where we didn't want to do a full series, which obviously takes production time, takes all kinds of analysis into build and flow. So we've started the whole concept of single video series, where we're going to be doing more very specific videos, and actually I do have a slew of them prepared as well. To be creating around code box and content box as well, and command box. But the AMIs, we're basically going to be doing a series on those as well. George Murphy is going to be assisting as well. And we've done a lot for cloud providers, and we're going to be doing even more this year. So we're going to show you how to create accounts, how to actually get even free ways to basically deploy your applications, how to launch your AMIs, and how to actually use VS Code as your editor and your CLI tooling for launching all these AMIs. So it's pretty interesting, very exciting, especially moving everything to the cloud, everything container-based, and just trying to help developers become more automated and, of course, modern. So very interesting for me. I think this is so important for the ColdFusion community because, I remember at one point somebody was saying like there are not many hosts for ColdFusion. I don't think that even matters anymore for any language. I think as long as you can have a container approach and command box, basically any host provider is a ColdFusion host provider. So having the ability for developers to actually learn how to use these tools to develop their apps and deploy them is really essential.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the thing. A lot of companies are moving away from ColdFusion because their deployment team, their DevOps team, doesn't know ColdFusion, but they don't need to. They just need to know how to do Docker.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think it's great too. So, one of the Create account one is free. The couple of ones you have to have the paid subscription, I believe. But we'll be releasing more of those videos coming up. And then we have the Into the Box videos as well. So we have Into the Box Latam is coming soon. I think all the Into the Box from this last September is already there and available for free now. So a lot of great content up on CFCasts. So if you want to check it out, go to cfcasts.com. Okay, next up we have some conferences, and it's the start of the year, so we don't have too many, but I think we have a Vue Js one coming up soon, right, Luis?
Yes, I actually wanted to give you another one real quick. So maybe can you do the Vue Js one? I'll give you the other one that we're going to be with Brad as well.
Sure. Yeah, Vue Js Nation is going to be on January 26th and 27th. It's register for free online at vuejsnation.com. I believe it's European time zone, but that'll be pretty neat. And so it's online. The call for speakers just ended, so hopefully we'll be hearing some of those speakers being announced here pretty soon. And then you guys are actually attending one. Are you guys speaking at this one, or what's the deal?
Yes. So we're very excited to go back to Atlanta for DevNexus. So DevNexus has been one of my favorite conferences, apart from Into the Box, of course. But this is a full Java developer conference. I think it's one of the biggest Java conferences in the world. And we always try to attend. And this year it's going to be in person again. Hopefully now that everybody has gotten Omicron and everybody's getting antibodies, will probably going to be nice. So April 12th to the 14th in Atlanta. Brad got selected for a topic, and myself as well. So we will be presenters at DevNexus this year as well. And it's just a great conference. If you are in that area, I really encourage you. It's not very expensive. Tons of vendors, tons of ways to network, but most importantly, the caliber of the speakers is just really amazing. Patrick and Vincent Myers that run the conference, they do a fantastic job. I actually think they do the Vue Js conference as well. They do all kinds of conferences for a living. But I would highly encourage developers to go here. It's all about the JVM, everything about the JVM. So really encourage you.
Cool. So obviously you guys are speaking at DevNexus, and then do you have any dates for Into the Box yet?
Yes. So I was actually writing it down here for you, Gavin. So we have some dates for Into the Box. I'm going to write them right now. September, we're thinking 27 to the 30th. So back to in person, but this year we want to do more of the usual trainings that we always do.
Oh.
So 27 to the 30th is what we're thinking for Into the Box 2022 here in Houston. However, we might have a new venue, Gavin, that I'm going to go check out and scope out pretty soon.
Yeah, I heard we're going to be maybe testing it out for our little Ortus retreat, since we haven't had a retreat in a couple of years, thanks COVID. So we want to try something out, huh?
It rhymes with margarita. There you go.
Well, does it rhyme? I think it actually is margarita. Anyway, so it looks like a really cool venue. So yeah, I'm excited to see what you find out there and see if they're willing to work with us as a conference. But very cool. So yeah, Charlie said he missed it, but no, Into the Box 2022 is looking to be late in September, so 27th through 30th is the dates at this time. We're obviously got to confirm, but that's what we're looking at. So we will be doing trainings this year as well, as Luis said, not just the conference. We want to try and get our workshops back because a lot of people missed those workshops last year. So
definitely.
Yep. So far that's the news we have on that, and then we're always having Into the Box Latam December. We'll tell you more about that as we get there as well. But so yeah, we're already planning away. So that is it for more conferences. If you want to get on there, you can look at conf.tech, a great little site for all your conference needs, and a lot of different options there. Okay, so blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. So first up, we have one from Charlie about some Java updates, right, Luis?
Yeah, so Charlie has all the new updates released from Java 8, 11, and 17. So I have not had a chance to read all of it yet, but from the show notes that we have here, it's basically the new long-term LTS releases of Oracle Java are available. So highly encourage everybody to upgrade. If you're in command box, you can just say open JDK and then the number, and that's it. You're going to get actually upgraded. So highly encourage you to get those security fixes and your apps tested on it.
Yep, just for those who are watching, I have my screen shared, and Charlie does mention you can get the Java updates from Adobe now. You should not use, for now, Java 17. So basically, yeah, avoid that one. But other than that, Charlie's got a lot of information. Should you apply it? How soon? If there are any changes. So there's a few different things in there. So it mentions how the TLS versions change may affect you, etc. So always read the show notes and then get those links. We'll be sending them out in the chat for those who are watching as well.
Java 17 still has some issues. They've done a lot of changes on the internal APIs as well. So I would stay a little bit away from it yet, but we've got to get all the vendors up and running with 17.
Yeah, eventually we'll get there. I know it's pretty tough. They do a lot of changes when they roll these out. Okay, next up, this was an interesting one. It's from Ben Nadal, and so he's basically been looking at trying to get his Lighthouse numbers up for his blog because he's been rebuilding it, from the ground up. So he went from Cold Fusion, and now he's sort of looking into more detail into things like CDNs. So he's actually tried out this Cloudflare CDN, which has a really big free option. I use them for DNS because it's nice to have DNS separated from my domains, and they're really good. And they have lots of other features. I know Luis has some we can talk about later, but one of the things he was doing was using the CDN for his JavaScripts and images and CSS, etc. And so basically he's been working really hard. For those watching, you can see he got to a point where he had hundreds for performance, accessibility, best practices, and SEO without the web app. But basically it was at 100 because of the CDN changes. So pretty cool. And again, it's 100% free for his volume of usage. And if Ben's blog is in the 100% free tier, then yours probably is too, because we know Ben's a champ. So if he's that good and still in that tier, you should be safe too. But pretty cool. So he sort of goes through the process and how he migrated to it and whatnot. So pretty neat. But I know we use Cloudflare for Ortus for a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah, we do. And I love Cloudflare, and we don't work for Cloudflare. We don't get any money from Cloudflare. We just think it's an amazing product. And they keep expanding, which is really nice, into other areas of, that you need as a developer. And what I love the most is that it's outside of your infrastructure. It's kind of the first line of defense. They kind of just started as, with the CDN capabilities, but they also have WAF capabilities. They have the ability to monitor your site. We use it for ForgeBox all the time to make sure that we keep nasty things away. We also use it for leveraging for introspecting into packages and stuff. So there's lots of tools, lots of things available in Cloudflare. They have a free tier, which can be more than enough for a small site. But there's also obviously the paid ones, which have more features. So I really recommend Cloudflare for all kinds of web development.
Yeah, and then the other thing too is if you actually use there for DNS and everything, I mean, they have a lot of stuff in there for free. But locally, if you want to use them instead of Google, 1.1.1.1, that's pretty easy to remember their DNS number instead of Google's 8.8.8.8. But they don't track you and whatever like Google, so they're big on the privacy thing too. So anyway, next up we have a blog post from Will. Will is talking about Logbox. So I thought this would be right up your alley, Luis.
Yeah. So basically, it's a very dear to my heart kind of topic. very geeky about logging, but it's really essential. That's really why I created Logbox, is that there wasn't really a robust framework for logging for CFML apps. And in Logbox, just so people know, you don't have to be using Coldbox to use it. This is a standalone library, basically to give you robust logging capabilities for your apps. It does not use Log4j, right? It does not use Log4j, right? It just is built on pure CFML. However, you can extend it to use Log4j if you want. And Bill is basically going and he's going to actually be doing a series on all kinds of things Logbox. He's assisting with the documentation. We want to make it more friendlier for developers to get into logging. Logging can get very complex, and he tries to decompose all different parts of how Logbox works, basically, from the appender, which is basically a destination, right? That can be a console, it can be a socket, it can be an email, it can be a database, it can be Log4j, right? It can be anything else. And then he also describes how to format messages, right? So they can actually take shape and customize them as you want them. So very cool blog post. Will, as always, goes into very, very good detail into things. He's very curious. I love that about him, even though I don't love that sometimes I get like 1,000 tickets from him because he's very curious, right? But it's going to be a great series that he's doing. So I really encourage you guys, if you haven't done any type of robust logging for your apps, take a look at it. I also want to talk to Vils. Maybe he can do some blogging about Stashbox, which is our companion for logging. So maybe something that we can talk about as a webinar too, right, Gavin?
Yeah. That's a good thing, though. Like you said, he may give you a lot of tickets, but he also gives you pull requests and documentation pull requests too. So we like those guys. If you're putting a lot of tickets in and you're willing to help out, that's even better. So yeah, it's great. We really like Phil, and we enjoy having him speak at our conference too. So if, like you said, if they let us let him in this year, because obviously travel with COVID was bad. He couldn't make it last year, so maybe if they let him in this year, he might be speaking again into the box later this year. Hopefully.
Hopefully Papa Biden will let people in by September. That's our hope.
Yep. So we also had a tweet from James Moberg. This one here grabbed my attention because, working on Mac and working on Linux, everybody uses async for everything. And sometimes people in Cold Fusion will use it with CF Execute, but he was talking about Fast Copy 4, which I'd never heard of, but he actually uses this with Cold Fusion over the built-in Java or Windows DOS commands. It's faster for syncing, file logging, and all that stuff. So I actually asked him if he's used like WinRoboCopy, because I use that locally, and I use rclone, which I gave some hints to a few people about using rclone. And so this one is a pretty nice little tool. It's an interesting site, but he's been using it for a long time. So if you check it out, it might be a good little tool. And then in that tweet thread, when I asked him some questions, he gave me some more feedback and about different things. So he uses Terracopy and a couple other things as well. So if you're looking for a faster, better sync, have a look at those. Pretty nice and neat. So definitely worth checking out. And then after that, we have another one from Ben Idal, and this one's talking about how he uses his GitHub gist, but had run into some issues with cores. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I started reading about it, and he's basically reverting back to, instead of using the traditional kind of JavaScript embed, to basically leverage it with Coldbox proxy, right? So Coldbox proxy with a Cold Fusion proxy. So it's very interesting. I love how Ben is always so curious and tries different things. So
yeah, really, I thought it was pretty interesting because he used instead of, because normally if you include it, you use the JS link and it uses documents.write. But if you use the JSON, it'll give you just straight JSON back, and you can do what you want with it. And so he's using file read binary, and that actually reads a URL, which is pretty interesting, that you can just basically give it a URL, and the file read binary will take that and read it, and and then that way you avoid the cause.
Yeah, actually, I think that was an update they did in CFML engines to support the multiple resources. So in all reality, that file read binary, anything that reads files can use the different prefixes, such as HTTPS, HTTP, can use S3, it can use RAM. So basically, this is one of the beauties of CFML, is that we can actually talk to multiple basically resource providers, as I think that's called in Lucy, right? And I think Adobe supports it as well. So it's a really cool feature of the language. I don't know if many people knew about it, but you can actually use those type of prefixes or resource prefixes to reach multiple destinations and leverage the traditional file manipulation functions in CFML to use them.
Yeah, I know that Lucy did that quite some time ago, but I mean, I think he's using Cold Fusion 2021 even, so
Yeah.
it's nice to see that Adobe's got that type of stuff too, so pretty neat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the cool thing, comparing them is that Lucy will have the advantage here because you can actually write your own. So we can actually create an extension and create our own resource providers as well. I wish Adobe would allow us to do that. So if you're listening, anybody in Adobe, provide a way for developers to actually create different resources as well.
Yep, that would be cool. Okay, well, speaking of Adobe, Mark Takata from Adobe was talking about his GraphQL video that he did at CF Summit just recently. And then he said during that presentation, he did some basics with the GraphQL and the Airtables, but they wanted some more examples because obviously in one session you don't have that much time. So he spent some time here to go back and actually fill in the rest of the CRUD commands and to give you that. So he's using GraphQL to write to an Airtable using the BaseQL plugin. Now, which I thought was interesting, I heard rumors that Adobe's looking at possibly doing some GraphQL for the next version of Adobe Cold Fusion. Is that something you've heard anything about yet, Luis?
I have not. Obviously, I was out on holiday and then got slammed with COVID and was basically out of the US and out of the loop for a bit. But I have not. Obviously, we've investigated GraphQL for quite some time. I'm divided, to tell you the truth. I think that GraphQL had its high. I don't know if it's in its high anymore. So even if they do implementations, we're kind of iffy to do. So I would be very curious what they do with it and if they feel that this is something to go with. So I wouldn't say I'm excited. I would say I am cautiously excited.
Yeah, well, that's what someone was excited, and I think in the Ortus Slack channel, and they said, well, if they're gonna create it, they're really eager to see it. I'm like, well, that means Lucy won't have the same version if they have it at all. And then I'm like, it's probably gonna be built on some type of data access layer, and their data access layer is Hibernate, and we all love and hate Hibernate. So, yeah, that's kind of interesting. But I'm kind of curious where it's gonna go and how they'll use it and how they'll tie into it for sure. So.
Yeah, like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic about this, but yeah, it will be very interesting to see how they approach it.
Yep. Okay, what do we have up next?
All right, we have Mr. Brad Wood, our very own Brad Wood, tweeting about command box server rules. So I don't know. Let me load up the tweet. I want to see what predicate language he wrote. He just basically went to the rule examples. So this is actually a feature that we have exposed in command box, which I believe takes it to yet just another level of how our tooling in Cold Fusion and CFML is just overtaking other languages. And this basically taps into Undertow. So Undertow has a predicate language, a DSL, a domain-specific language, to actually deal with requests and responses, right? So Brad and the team basically exposed that predicate language that you can basically add to your server.json. And it lets you do incredible things from rewrites to basically intercepting expressions and setting headers, setting automatic response headers, automatic features that you can do with it. And he links into a bunch of examples that he's been, collecting through time.
There's a lot.
So I really, really would encourage folks that are leveraging command box to read these examples. You can read them in about 10 minutes. It's just one page, and it'll give you a really good insight into what you can do with the predicate language. In all reality, there's no more need for a web server. We're doing so much to basically, you can leverage everything that you did with a web server.
Yeah.
And more.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I just like how detailed all the examples are. So if I actually do want to figure something out, there's quite a few examples there, and I can probably figure the rest out myself.
Yeah,
So,
and you can even do a reverse proxy. So that's something that can be very interesting for people. You can even leverage command box as a load balancer, right? So, and these are the areas that we're exploring for the future of command box, to give you the ability for you to actually being able to start up multiple command box instances with load balancing and reverse proxy. So really take a look at it. It will be very interesting. And of course, feedback is always fantastic.
yep. Okay, next up, we have a tweet from Zach Spitzer. So this one always gets people, but the scope cascading rules in CFML can be a bit complicated. He's updated the Lucy test case for disabling search results for unscoped query access to document and test the various scenarios. And today he learned that the rules are different in a CFC versus a CFM. And so this is his little pull request here, but he follows it up here with some updates to the documentation. So the scopes documentation here, so you can find out a little bit more about them, because you've got a lot of different scopes: local scopes, request scopes, query scopes, global scopes. And then, yeah, I know that one time when I upgraded Cold Fusion between 9 and 10, I believe, they changed the order of certain ones, but only in CFMs and not CFCs, and there was a few other
Yeah.
things, and so it pays to be pretty explicit just to make sure that you don't get caught out with that stuff. So, but anyway, so he had fun with that, and so he's adding more tests to Lucy, which is always good, and updating the doc, so even better. So I just wanted to share that because it sometimes will bite people. So
Yeah, I think that you always have to remember that, CFCs came after the fact, right? So CFMs were first. So, CFCs obviously behave differently. So it's dealing with that encapsulation, and it has to be different, right?
yeah,
So very
yep,
important one actually. Come and bite you
yeah.
hard.
And those are the weird ones too, because it worked in one version and not the other, and then it works. Everything works just differently, and yeah, those are hard ones to catch because, yep, cascading can really get you when you don't expect it.
And it can
So,
even be a security risk,
hmm,
especially if you're looking at the wrong places.
yeah, for sure. So we got one more tweet from Brad. What has he been tweeting about this time?
Brad always is that's useful, but that's actually just a comment he was making about how right dump is really smart in Lucy, and I really do like that. It's basically trying to determine the types of the objects that are being sent into it in order to display them in a much more user friendlier manner. I think right dump is one of the best and mostly widely used functions and tags ever, right? I know that I always try to recreate those in JavaScript because they don't exist, right? So it's very important to point out that Lucy tries to be very smart and helpful for developers to show you all the different types of objects that are available to you, such as time zones, locales, calendars, daytime objects, which are always very confusing in the JVM.
Yeah, he's sharing. I'm sharing my screen for those watching, but he has a gist, whatever you want to call them, that has a few different options, and this is what it looks like in Lucy. And if we use try CF, we can change the type, and if we come over to like Adobe 2021, we could try run it over there, and we'll see the difference. But see, the time zone shows up here in the calendar
Yeah.
mode versus this, you get a dump of the Java object, which is not as friendly as what you'd like. And so that's what he means, just like really we should look and say, oh, they're trying to dump it. They probably don't actually want the object. They probably want the data inside of it. Like, so why can't we just display it the smart way? So, yeah,
I'm wondering if he actually created a ticket for Adobe to actually improve their dumps, just so everybody benefits.
possibly. But yeah, so that was again just one of those little things that Lucy does that we all like. I mean, I like the fact that you can hover your mouse over the dump and it'll tell you what file and what line it's in. It'll
Oh
actually like
yeah,
pop up a little tooltip because sometimes you're like, where the heck is this dump coming from? But you can, yeah,
or
put
the
it.
missing abort.
Oh yeah, that too. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff. Just little things, but those little things add up. So, anyways, okay. Well, that wraps up our blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. Next up, though, we have find a job. So we use Get CFML jobs, and they've had 30 jobs posted since the end of November, so that's not bad. We got 4 new ones listed this week. You want to give us a breakdown of what you see there?
Sure. Yeah. So let's go for the first one. I have a full-time software dev in Overland Park, Kansas City, close to Brad. There's the link. We have another one in Overland. So there's 2 positions available in Overland. Then we have other 2 positions in Santa Ana, California. One is a normal web developer, and the other one is a junior web developer. So very interesting. I think we're going to actually be adding some Ortus positions as well pretty soon here, Gavin. So
very cool.
Keep an eye out as well. We're in need of more developers as well. So we're going to be putting at least 2 positions available for Ortus too pretty soon here.
Very cool. And then we have another link, vintro.com/careers. And I did see a few others pop around on Facebook and not LinkedIn, but on Twitter lately. I missed them for the show notes, but if you guys see them, let us know and we'll add them to the show notes, and we'll get a few more listed there. But yeah, looks like there are a few jobs
open. Is that Ventro somebody that's looking for developers, or is that a place to post?
No, they're looking for developers.
They're looking for developers.
Yeah, I think they're in the UK, but that's a remote position. They just want to have some adjacent time zones at least, so that way you're not offset too much. But yeah. Like I said, I saw quite a few on the Facebook group popping up lately. I just couldn't find them when I went to go back, because Facebook's Facebook. So next time I'll make sure I should save them on the show notes when I see them. Okay, so next up we have a ForgeBox module of the week. And this one we're talking about one from Matthew Clemente. And this one is called Urlbox Screenshots. So
it's not our product. It's not our box.
No, it's not our box, which is pretty different, isn't it? We're not used to that. So Urlbox Screenshots. So it's a service that you can sign up for. I think he has in his blog post. He had a blog post about it too, about the pricing and everything else. But basically, you can give it a URL and some options or whatnot, and then basically have the build URL, and it will actually give you a URL, passing in your API key and your token and passing the variables it needs, and it brings back that. But it's pretty neat that you can just sort of give it a URL and tell it what screenshot you want, and then it'll go away and do the work for you. So I know there's probably some tools out there that already do this, or there's like command line tools, but it's pretty slick. You don't have to do anything too fancy with it, and pretty straightforward. And Matt made a nice little wrapper for you. So if you want to do some screenshots, maybe for your tests, you guys can do comparisons to see if your code is outputting the same stuff. I know someone did that where they did like in their test, they took a screenshot of the site that was generated and tried to see how much difference, if there was so much difference using some AI tool or whatever, an image comparison. They would basically flag it for review to make sure that somebody didn't break some styles or something. Pretty interesting.
Actually, very interesting. I'm going through their site right now.
Yeah,
it's like a little screenshot scraper or something.
Yep. And so basically it's pretty neat. And there's a Node and PHP repository generates URLs, but yeah, it's pretty slick. So basically, we need the community here to go to the actual link for the screenshot API, and so they can actually put Cold Fusion right next to the other languages. So how about that? Sounds good.
Because we have Ruby, Python, PHP, and JavaScript. We need a CFML one there. Now that it's built.
Yep, it looks pretty slick.
We need somebody to take the lead and assist here.
So yeah. So that is our ForgeBox module of the week, Urlbox Screenshots. Very cool. Next up, we have our VS Code hints, tips, and tricks of the week. And this one I thought would be close to your heart because you're a Regex lover.
Yes, I'm actually looking at it right now. I've never seen this one. I actually use a website. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Back in Texas, back in allergy land. Woo. But I actually use this website called Regextester.com. I'm a huge fan of regular expressions, a nerd for regular expressions. So having something in VS Code are actually pretty interesting. So I'm going to definitely check it out.
Yeah, I know Scott Steinbeck uses the Regexter website quite often. That's a good recommendation too. But this one, like I said, just having it straight in there. If you've got your file open, you can just sort of type away, and yeah, it'll just pull it up right there. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I
So
like that. That's really essential. So I'm gonna install it right now.
yeah, so that's just one of those things, Yes, you can do it somewhere else, but sometimes it's just convenient to do it on the same screen. So Regexter.com is another one. If anybody else has any similar links or tools that they use for Regex stuff, post them in the chat, and we'll add them to the show notes too for those other ones. Luis, if you want to put your one in there, we can add that as well.
Yeah, I actually used to use one. Do you remember Air? You remember Adobe Air?
Yeah, I remember Adobe Air.
Yeah, Adobe Air had big hopes, man. I had big hopes for Adobe Air. I don't know how they messed that up, but it was kind of the first kind of like Quasar, where you could build, native applications into your, using Adobe technology. So, but yeah, Adobe Air had a regex test tool that maybe I still have in one of my PCs, but I'm gonna look for it now.
Yep, for sure. And then Scott said he really likes how VS Code will actually show you the search results for regex in a full project search automatically too. So you've got that option to do a text search or a regex search. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, that regex 101 that I'm linking, Ryan, is pretty cool because it has a library of things as well, and tells you and explains the matching patterns as well.
Cool. And then Charlie just shared a link that he has. He has a link of a whole set of tools for regex on his site, so I'll put that one on the list as well. So pretty neat. So yeah, thanks everybody for chiming in with that. But yeah, so there's a lot of great tools out there, and this is just another one, like basically straight into your VS Code. So very cool. And then I think Scott said he needs to make a blog post using the CF regex versus the Java regex to sort of compare, because there are some differences too. Yeah, pretty neat. And then James Oberg said that the 101 link supports multiple flavors of regex, and yeah, that's the thing. We got all these different flavors. That's the biggest thing I always get confused on. So, but yeah, so that's our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. So next up, last but not least, we have our Patreon supporters. So without them individually supporting us with their hard-earned moolah, we wouldn't be able to make this podcast possible. And also, this means that we have more money from Ortus to be able to do stuff like CommandBox, ForgeBox, ColdBox, ContiBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes except for Box.com and Urlbox, because those aren't us. But you can support us on Patreon at patreon.com/OrtusSolutions. And the cool thing is we have a lot of different perks for actually being a member of our Patreon system. So we do have annual memberships now. So if you pay for the year, you save 10%, which is great for businesses or just those people who don't want to have a monthly recurring bill. But the benefits are that on the Ortus community website, which is community.ortussolutions.com, you have your own little profile badge when you're on the site. You also have a private forum for your own private access on the community website too, so just for Patreon subscribers. And then if you're a bronze package or higher, you get that ForgeBox Pro and CFCast subscription as a perk for your Patreon subscription. So basically one subscription, you get a couple of different tools included, so that's pretty neat. So yeah, definitely some perks to it, and we really appreciate it. And like I said, that just means that your support allows us to do more things, and we're grateful for that. And hopefully we're building great tools that you guys are happy to have in the community.
Yes, definitely. Very, very important. I think we are all as a community, and we try to do as much as we can, out of our own hearts and our own wallets. But your help, really goes a long way. We really are good stewards of everything that comes in, and try to make sure that everything's running and everything's available for folks.
Yep, for sure. So you want to read off those Patreon names and say
Sure.
thank you?
John Wilson, Eric Hoffman, Gary Knight, Mario Rodriguez, Jaisuk, Giancarlo Gomez, David Belanger, Jonathan Parrott, Jeffrey McGee, Dean Monder, Joseph Lamery, Don Bellamy, John Yannick, Laxma Turtohadi. Did I get that right, Gavin? Turtohadi.
Not sure. Close enough.
I remember Laxma, though. He's a cool guy. Carl von Stetten, Dan Carr, Jeremy Adams, Jordan Clark, Matthew Clemente, Daniel Garcia, Scott Steinbeck, Ben Nadel, Mingo Hagen, Brett Deline, Kate Koenig, Charlie Earhart, Jonas Erickson, Jason Diger, Jeff McLean, Sean Odin, Matthew Darby, Ross Phillips, Edgardo Cabezas, Patrick Flynn, Stephanie Monge, Kevin Wright, and Stephen Klotz.
Very cool. You can see a list of all the sponsors on the Ortus Solutions website at ortussolutions.com/about-us/sponsors. So yeah, thank you everybody. We really appreciate your hard-earned money, but we also appreciate all those who give us issues, pull requests, documentation updates. All of that helps the community and helps us to do our part to help the community. So we thank each and every one of you. And thanks for everyone joining us in the chat today. We had a little bit of a conversation going in there, lots of links and sharing and everything. So I really appreciate it. So,
Cool.
Well, thank you, Luis, for joining us. We know you're a busy man, boxing around.
Yes, working on a new CodeBox release, so stay tuned.
Very cool. So we'll have that up for you guys as soon as it's ready. And thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll catch you all next week.
All right, bye, guys.
Have a good one, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.